Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Psalm 37 verse 7. No one noticed the boy who walked the streets barefoot. He didn't speak much, not because he couldn't, but because he chose not to. People called him Mute Mark, not knowing he was neither mute, nor broken, nor cursed. They didn't know he was waiting for the voice that once thundered in a whisper. But silence was his teacher, and what God built in him there, the world would soon never forget. Mark lived with his grandmother in a forgotten corner of a rusted neighborhood. His parents had died in a car crash when he was 7. Since then, grief had become the rhythm of his silent world. He stopped talking, not out of rebellion, but reflection. While others saw a troubled child, God saw a tender heart, one he could mold, not with noise, but with quiet. Years passed. Mark swept the church floors without being asked. He repaired broken chairs, smiled at angry neighbors, and prayed under the old fig tree where no one else dared to go. People mocked him. Even churchgoers whispered, "Why doesn't he just speak up?" But Mark had heard something once in a dream, or perhaps it was a vision. A still, small voice. "I will build you in silence." He believed it. At 17, Mark was offered a scholarship to a far-off city. A pastor who noticed his quiet faith recommended him to a Christian school. The city roared with distractions. Lights, music, crowds, the opposite of everything he'd known. Still, Mark remained silent. Not mute, but measured. He studied hard, served without seeking credit, and prayed in the stairwells between classes. He became known, not for his voice, but for his peace. One day, a professor said, "Mark, you live like a monk in a world of performers." Mark only smiled and handed him a verse on a note card. "In quietness and trust is your strength." Isaiah 30 verse 15. He still remembered that voice from the fig tree. "I will build you in silence." It wasn't a punishment. It was preparation. Years later, Mark returned home. His grandmother had passed away. The church was nearly abandoned. Graffiti marked the walls, and the fig tree had been cut down by developers. Mark knelt on the cracked floor of the church and cried. The silence now felt like a coffin. Had he misunderstood God? Had all these years of stillness been in vain? He shouted for the first time in years. "Why did you leave me quiet? I could have shouted your name from rooftops. I could have fought, preached, sung, done something." But God answered, not in thunder, but in truth, because roots grow deep in silence. "I wasn't building your platform. I was building your soul." The next Sunday, Mark walked into the old church. He cleaned the dust, fixed the pulpit, and wrote a simple sign, "All welcome." 10 a.m. he waited. No one came. At 10:30, a homeless man limped in. Mark gave him his seat. At 10:45, a single mother entered with 2 children. At 11 o'clock, the former pastor's son, now an addict, collapsed at the altar. By noon, 13 broken lives filled the pews. Mark stood up. For the first time, he spoke aloud before a crowd. His voice cracked like dry earth touched by rain. "I have no sermon, only a story. I was built in silence, not so I could be loud, but so I could be real. I am not here to perform. I'm here to walk with you." The room fell into a hush that held more power than applause. Word spread, not of lights or music or charismatic preachers, but of quiet transformation. A man who listened, who prayed more than he posted, who saw people not as projects but as souls. Young men came to sit with him in prayer. Young women found refuge from noisy, toxic places. Addicts laid down their burdens. Children danced in the sanctuary again. People called it a revival, but Mark called it restoration. He told them, Jesus didn't come shouting at storms. He whispered to hearts. The cross wasn't loud, it was lonely. But from that silence, salvation roared. Years later, a new fig tree grew in the yard of the church. No one planted it. It simply rose from the roots of the old one, stubborn in the soil. Mark sat beneath it, older now, surrounded by the next generation. He shared this truth. You want to be used by God? Let him break you in silence. Let him bury you like a seed. The world may forget you, but God never does. A girl raised her hand, tears in her eyes. Why does God build in silence? Mark smiled. Because that's where pride dies and dependence lives. Silence is not the absence of God. It's the shaping hand of heaven. Mark was never famous. No books, no stages, no spotlight. But when he passed away, thousands lined the streets. People carried signs that read, "I found Jesus in the quiet." Others wept and whispered, "He listened to me when no one else would." On his tombstone was carved one phrase, "Built in silence, lived in surrender, now rests in glory." Some of the loudest lives are built in the quietest seasons. What God builds in secret will one day shine in the light. Not for our fame, but for His glory. You who feel forgotten in your silence, take heart. Heaven is building you. Deep roots, steady faith, quiet strength. Because when the storms come, it won't be the loud who stand. It will be the ones who were built in silence.